Can you learn to speak a language with comprehensible input alone? This is a question that I get relatively often, way more often than I thought I would. And I'm not only talking about people in the comment section being all angry about me saying that comprehensible input by itself doesn't work. No, I get those, but I also get people who, for whatever reason, don't have the time and energy. Usually, the energy or the work ethic, the time you have the time for serious learning. But people who want to learn to speak, but they want to do it the lazy way. They want to learn without doing all the hard stuff. And let's be honest, doing things like active recall is highly efficient, but it's also tiring. And if you're already stressed and you are really busy and you get home exhausted after work and you have to learn whatever language you want to learn, maybe you don't want to do exercises that are really effort intensive. Maybe you want to chill. And unfortunately, there's no way of learning to speak a language well, just by reading and listening, just by chilling, just by doing casual practice. No amount of casual practice will make you speak fluently. But we could, if that's your idea of how you want to learn, you could learn just by listening and reading if you really want to avoid all the hard work. It's not going to be as effective as doing all the other exercises, and you will probably never be as good as the people who do all the other exercises at speaking, but you can get decent at speaking just by listening and reading. How? Well, let's talk about input first. Comprehensible input. Everybody talks about it. Comprehensible input is the best thing since sliced bread. It's the only thing you need. Blah blah blah. That's all been discredited. It doesn't work like that. But people want to believe in it. But it's true that just watching random videos doesn't work to get your speaking to a high level, or at least to go from zero to conversational in a relatively reasonable amount of time, right? If you watch 10,000 hours of videos, yes, eventually you will understand and you'll be able to speak somewhat, but do you want to spend the next 10 years watching 3 hours of Spanish videos a day, every single day? No, of course not. But what we can do is be much more focused and targeted with our input. If you write everything you want to be able to say, or if you already have lists of sentences that you want to be able to say, and instead of watching Friends translated into Portuguese or whatever nonsense videos you watch in Dreaming Spanish or whatever, if you write everything down, everything that you want to say, and you translate it, and you get audio files using AI, then you can, by reading and listening, learn to speak relatively well, relatively fast. How does this work? Well, you don't need that many sentences to be able to speak a language. If you know a few hundred sentences well, as long as they are the right sentences, you will be able to speak the language. And if you know several thousand sentences, you'll be able to speak the language well. You don't have to do the more difficult exercises, so I highly recommend you do them. Shadowing and retrieval practice, all that stuff. You don't have to do them, but we should do them. So if you write your sentences, and this is why you still can't avoid hard work. You still have to write down everything you want to say, and that's time and effort. But once you've got it, once you've got your lines written and translated, and you've got audio files, if you read those lines while listening, and then you listen to them over and over again, let's say you've got 2,000 sentences you've written and translated. You can listen to 2,000 sentences in a day, easily. It's a couple hours of audio. So if you've got time during the day, when you're driving to work and back, when you're working out, blah, blah, blah. Lots of things that you can do while listening to language learning materials. And I guarantee that listening to AI generated text to speech audio is not fun. But if you listen to those 2,000 sentences, a couple of hours of audio, once or twice a day, to the whole list, in a few weeks, you'll be able to say most of those sentences in conversation. And this is how you can learn to speak a language pretty well, pretty fast, just by reading and listening. Again, you will have to take the time and do the work in the beginning, writing down your language islands. But once you've got those, yeah, it's doable. This is, however, not what I recommend. I do recommend doing all of this, but I highly recommend speeding up the process using active recall to learn to remember those sentences correctly and get feedback, all of that stuff that makes you think in the language faster. That kind of practice is much more effort intensive, but will help you get where you want to be much faster. But again, if you want to avoid hard work, you can, as long as you've got the sentences written already, which I guess that's the part where you can't really avoid hard work. Either you use the language islands we've prepared already, but those are not your own language islands, and me talking about myself is not. It's going to be useful for you to get some ideas and learn to write sentences about yourself, but you still have to do it. You still have to write down the stuff. There's no avoiding the work, honestly. You could learn random sentences that we've got, and it's going to work, but by themselves, the random sentences are never going to be as good as your own sentences that you've written. So my advice is to start writing your language islands. Write as many sentences as you can about yourself, about work, about your hobbies, interests, whatever you like doing, or things you don't like, if you like to rant a lot, like I do sometimes. And then start just reviewing those sentences over and over. Again, 10,000 repetitions of, like, you take 1,000 sentences, good sentences, useful sentences, and you do 10,000 reps with it. You read and listen to the whole thing 10 times. That's way more valuable than 1,000 hours of random videos, because all of those are useful sentences that you wrote yourself, so they're much easier to remember, and they are practical and useful, and you know you will use them in conversation, and you thought of them, so yeah, they're going to be useful and memorable, right? So this is my advice. Input, yes. Targeted input, way better.